Hello, friends, and welcome to the Mythological Africans podcast, where we read and talk about stories from African mythology and folklore. I am your host, Helen Tunde. Thank you again for tuning in for the last week of our foray into musical folklore from the African continent. And today I meant to talk a little bit about Sudanese folk music and its intersection with the country's political conflict, but I have to make an admission, guys. I really struggled with today's topic. And this is mainly because the political conflict in Sudan is ongoing, right? It's live, so to speak. And I could do research to talk intelligently enough about the music or the history, but I worried about reducing this episode to one of the many informative but soulless pieces floating around on the internet today, which capitalize on trending topics. And you know what I mean. You read a piece of writing or you watch a video on YouTube, and it's in a language you understand, and there's coherent information. But it all reads and sounds like a response to a question you ask ChatGPT. This is not to knock other people who are creating and putting material out there. I wanted to do the topic justice, right? And I had to come to the acceptance that this is not a topic that I can do as good a deep dive as I would want to really cover all the bases. And I wrestle a lot with this while curating MA, to be honest. How do I make sure I'm talking about people and their stories and their cultures and struggles, objectively, truthfully, while being sensitive to nuances and compassionate with sore spots, right? And all without seeming like I know more or better than the people themselves. And, this is something computer algorithms don't worry about, right? But, at the same time, the beauty of mythology and folklore and why I love it so much is that whether it's old stories or new beliefs or it's music, vocal or instrumental, these are the expressions of human imagination and creativity. And they both translate the most fundamental of human instincts, and that is to make meaning out of life and, if possible, to make it beautiful. So this instinct, honestly, the way I see it, is not something that, you need deep reading or, long periods of reflection or, induction into any particular way of knowing or being to appreciate. So after thinking about this all week, honestly, I thought about how I would do this episode all week. I decided that today I would not talk about a folk musical style per se or an instrument, but about a person. And that person is the late Bashir Abbas, a giant of Sudanese folk music. Bashir Abbas was born in August of 1937 in Halfayat al-Muluk, one of the oldest neighborhoods in the northern part of the city of Khartoum in Sudan. Earlier this year, in a Facebook post to commemorate the second anniversary of his death, his daughter Alhan shared that her father grew up in a music-loving home, and his father recognized Bashir's academic brilliance and musical talent at a young age, and so gave him his first instrument, a flute. Bashir also learned to play the oud, which is the instrument you hear him playing in the background, from his cousin, a woman named Asma Hamza, who herself was an accomplished player and melodist. He developed his skill in both these instruments to eventually become one of Sudan's best-known players and the person who established Sudanese instrumental music as an art form. And what do I mean when I say Sudanese instrumental music? I'm talking about the musical style that merges the traditions of the ancient Nubian kingdoms the country emerged from with the traditions of Christianity and especially Islam, with which it has had close contact for centuries. And as is the case among other African people and people across the world, traditional Sudanese melodies and tunes are an outpouring of the people's thoughts and feelings about their lives. And traditionally, people make music as they sow and harvest, as they hunt and herd. They make music to celebrate happy events and commemorate sad events, and do till today. And so this has continued, people making music to worship and to remember ancestors and holy people. And musical instruments and philosophies arrived in Sudan with foreigners. The oud is one of these, and they interacted with homegrown instruments like Nugara drums and the waza horn and the very popular tambor, which is a stringed instrument like the oud, to produce a unique and yet timeless sound that is typical, I think, of all regions in the world which have been major crossroads of human endeavor. The city of Omdurman, that is north of Khartoum, is a melting pot in which all of Sudan's different peoples lived, and that's where this cocktail of sound most liberally mixed with traditional Sudanese sounds, meeting with each other and with music coming from the broader Arab and European communities which were in the city. This is the city Bashir and his family moved to from Khartoum, and it is here that he came into his own as a musician and composer. His time in Omdurman was prolific. He started out as an oud player for Omdurman Radio in 1959 when he was only 22 years old, but quit by 1963 to dedicate himself full-time to composing. And compose he did. He worked with the biggest names in Sudanese folk music, composing music or writing lyrics for their songs. And the most notable of these would be Al Balabil or the Nightingales, a singing group made up of Amal, Hadia, and Hayat Talsam, a trio of sisters. It was Bashir who encouraged the sisters to form the group in the 70s, and he wrote their first big hit song, Those Who Ask Don't Get Lost. Till date, Al Balabil remained one of Sudan's most successful women singer groups, and they were dubbed the Sudanese Supremes for their glamorous style and vibrant performances and catchy songs. Bashir himself often cited Burai Mohamed Dafala, another Sudanese melodist, and Egyptian Farid al-Atrush, who also is a melodist, as the greatest influences on his own musical style, and he developed his style from combining the styles of these two greats. But he was also known for blending the fluid melodies of flutes and whistles with the oud to create unforgettable new melodies, some of which took him months to compose. Bashir was recognized and awarded internationally as an ambassador of Sudanese folk music. He performed at numerous international concerts, represented Sudan in musical competitions, and recorded musical programs with the BBC and many other European and foreign media houses. He was, however, best known and beloved for his support and mentorship of singers and musicians in the Sudanese musical scene. And in the course of his prolific career, Bashir composed over 50 original musical pieces and contributed to the musical portfolios of over 100 Sudanese folk musicians. And he had an 8-piece musical ensemble who, with his masterful oud playing, which has been described as groovy and earthy, he helped usher traditional Sudanese folk music into the modern era of popular music that we know now. Bashir Abbas passed away in January of 2022 at the age of 85. I am certain there is much about this wonderful man I've not included in this episode, and that's because there's not much information about him that I could find, in one place at the time I was putting it all together. However, the episode notes include links to lots of great reading about him and more recordings of his music, but also great reading and listening resources for Sudanese music in general. And there's a podcast episode about the evolution of Sudan's musical and political history with an interview with Al Balabil. And there's also an essay about the rise of music from Beja, one of the Sudanese people who were often targeted by the government of the former president. Here's a fun fact. Which up-and-coming American hip-hop star is related to Bashir Abbas? Here's a hint. He is signed to J. Cole's Dreamville Records and in 2023 released a song with Afrobeats megastar Adekunle Gold. You'll find the answer in the episode notes. As always, thank you for listening and see you next time.